Every video in this niche is wrong about the same thing. Today we say the opposite, and we prove it from the book they all quote. Every wellness video for the last decade has told you the cruel voice in your head is not really you. It says there's a clean part of you somewhere outside it, watching it happen, and that watching is enough. It is the most comforting sentence the internet has produced this decade. It is also wrong. In the next 12 minutes we are going to read Carl Jung in his own words, and we are going to find out he said the opposite. And once we do, the witness frame stops working as a hiding place. First, the Steelman. The witness frame is appealing because it gives a way out of the cruel voice without having to look at what the cruel voice is. No shame underneath it. No memory of when it formed. No question about what it has been trying to protect. Just step back. Observe. Disidentify. Done. That is why the frame travels so easily. It is a real practice. It can help in the short term. It creates space between impulse and action. It keeps panic from becoming behavior. And for a week, sometimes for a month, it feels like freedom. But ask someone who has actually tried it for 2 years. The cruel voice gets quiet, then returns louder. And the louder it gets, the more the practice becomes another command. Observe more. Step back more. Disidentify harder. Become even cleaner than the part you are trying to escape. That escalation never works, because the distance itself is the problem. The refusal to identify with the cruel part is what gives it more darkness to live in. That is the part Jung wrote about. That is the part the internet skipped. So the question is not how to silence the voice. The question is why a part of the self had to become cruel in order to be heard. Time to open the book. Carl Jung in Aion wrote a passage every shadow work channel quotes the first sentence of and ignores the rest. The first sentence is this: everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Notice the word embodied, not watched, not floated above. Embodied. That much most people have heard. Here is the part the witness frame videos skip. Jung continues, if an inferiority is conscious, there is a chance to correct it. But if it is repressed and isolated from consciousness, it never gets corrected. Repressed. Isolated. Never corrected. Those are not small words. Read the logic carefully. Jung is saying the opposite of the popular frame. The popular frame says, that cruel part is not really me, so I will observe it from outside. Jung says, when a part is kept outside conscious ownership, it stays in shadow, and because it stays in shadow, it stays uncorrected. He went further. In the philosophical tree, Jung wrote the sentence modern psychology loves to repeat and rarely finishes thinking through. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Again, the target is the fantasy of clean transcendence. The light image is the rejected move. Most channels use that line to mean, look at your dark stuff. Fine, but Jung is saying something harder. Making darkness conscious means the conscious personality has to include what it previously exiled. The rejected part has to become speakable as mine. Not interesting. Not symbolic. Mine. Condemn. Now Marcus Aurelius. Meditations is a private journal, one man writing to himself for years, never meant to become content. And what is strange is how often he speaks to himself as you. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, tells himself, wipe out imagination, stop pulling the strings. That matters. Marcus is not standing outside himself as a pure spectator. He is the one giving the command and the one receiving it. He is the stern voice and the resisting part. There is no third party in the room. There is a person trying to govern the whole of himself from within the whole of himself. This is what the witness frame hides. The voice is you, the cruel one, the kind one, the tired one, the one trying to be above it all, even the one silently objecting right now that this makes responsibility feel too heavy. Especially that one. This sounds like bad news. It is actually the only news that helps. Because as long as the cruel voice is treated as not me, Jung's warning applies exactly. It remains isolated. It remains uncorrected. It grows blacker and denser. You cannot correct what you refuse to admit belongs to the house. There is a post-Jungian name for the modern version of this mistake: spiritual bypassing. John Welwood coined that phrase in the 1980s. But the warning is deeply Jungian. When spiritual language is used to avoid shame, grief, envy, rage, or need, the rejected material does not become holy. It becomes hidden. So what is the actual move? If distance is not enough, if clean observation can become another form of exile, what does integration look like? The answer comes from Jung's acceptance of the shadow, and from a modern psychologist who made parts work practical. The move is hospitality, not surrender, not indulgence. Hospitality. The cruel voice does not need a throne. It also does not need exile. It needs a chair. The way a frightened part of a person might need a chair after standing guard for 20 years outside a locked door. This is the difficult sentence. The cruel voice is not an enemy invader. It is a part that, at some real moment, chose a strategy. Maybe to prevent rejection. Maybe to outrun humiliation. Maybe to make failure impossible by attacking first. Jung wrote in Psychology and Religion, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." Richard Schwartz, the founder of internal family systems therapy, built a practice around this idea in internal family systems therapy. Parts are not treated as enemies to be defeated. Even hostile parts are often protectors. They learned a job when the system was overwhelmed, and they keep doing that job long after the original danger has passed. So the practice is almost embarrassingly simple. The next time the cruel voice says, "Not enough," do not float above it. Do not argue it into silence. Say in your own mind, "Yes, that is the part of me that learned to expect rejection. I see you. I'm not throwing you out." That is harder than observing. Observing lets a person stay clean. Hospitality requires contamination by one's own life. Marcus knew that. Jung knew that. Schwartz made it usable. The witness frame, at its worst, is the move that lets a person keep pretending they are not part of the war. That is the third conversation in the inner war. The first conversation was between the cruel voice and the one that could finally hear it. The second was between impression and story. This one is between exile and welcome. And it ends the war without producing a victor. For the next week, try this. When the cruel voice speaks first, and it will, do not observe it from a safe distance. Do not argue with it. Greet it. "Yes, I see you. Tell me what you are protecting." Then wait. Let the answer be inconvenient. Episode 1. Let the two voices speak to each other. Episode 2. Watched a man at 2:47 a.m. Stop adding story to an impression. Tonight we read Jung carefully and learn why the most comforting